Chapter 14. Remove the fear. Okay, I've now told you on several occasions that you won't be consciously making any decisions to stop smoking, and I mean it. However, this doesn't mean that these options don't physically exist. So, before I continue, it's only fair I should let you know that there are two ways to permanently get rid of the cravings to smoke, and only two. The first way is to remove the fear response in your subconscious mind that causes it to tell you to smoke. The second way is even simpler. Die. That's it. Those are your options. Of course, you could argue that you've got a third choice, to simply keep smoking, but in fact this option is actually nothing more than a long-winded way of choosing the death option. And don't bother looking for fake comfort in the statistics telling you that smoking only has a 1 in 3 chance of killing you. Statistics are the biggest and oldest form of deception on this planet. If you smoke cigarettes, part of you is already dead. Your freedom. Your freedom to be calm, your freedom to taste food and drinks properly, your freedom to be fit, your freedom to sleep properly, your freedom to recover quickly from illnesses. At this point, you may be excited, but you may also be in turmoil. Maybe you've spent so long kidding yourself that smoking must somehow be enjoyable that you're now struggling to accept that every cigarette you've ever smoked has been a total waste of time. If so, close your eyes and look once again at the yellow supermarket banner you've seen a million times. Smoking causes cancer. Then consider this. Every time you've ever been under a genuine threat, your subconscious mind has always protected you. Every time you found yourself in a dangerous situation, your immediate reaction has been one of fear and self-preservation. And yet you smoke cigarettes, even though you know full well that smoking is the biggest cause of premature death on the planet. Well, I've got news for you. The only human emotion that can possibly override this level of fear is the fear of something even worse. Pleasure can't do it. Fear is what drives smoking. About 100 words into this book, I told you there is only one instinct stronger than the fear of death. It's the single worst fear a human being can endure, the fear of the unknown. This fear sits at the center of your affair with cigarettes, like a black hole, sucking away your life and your confidence every single second of every single day. It drives your smoking, because the delayed sensation caused by smoking a cigarette gives you fear without an obvious reason. Fake fear that then triggers real fear. Each cigarette you've smoked has been the crucifix you've used to try to drive this ghost away, except it's never worked, has it? Every drag you've ever taken on a cigarette has simply kept this feeling going while providing the temporary illusion of relief. You kept searching for this relief again and again because there were two things you simply didn't know. 1. You didn't know that this sensation is simply a chemical imitation of fear. It was never the real thing, which means there was never any need for it to trigger real fear. 2. You didn't know that this sensation was caused by smoking because it was a delayed response to nicotine, and smoking always reduced the sensation slightly before causing it all over again. Please let as many of your smoking friends as possible know this, and even the ex-smokers you know who still crave cigarettes. Get on the phone to them. Email them with the address of the Nicotine Trick website. Write it on the back of a fag packet, but please, please tell them. Let's take one final look at the misery of those millions of smokers who try to quit without making their subconscious minds know the facts. Those who either use willpower or simply hope for the best. What happens to them? I'm afraid many of them go through absolute hell. Take an example. When ex-smokers are at work and they see other smokers going for a cigarette break, they often feel irritable, anxious, insecure, and physically tense. Why? Because their subconscious minds still believe that a cigarette will make them less stressed, so they think they're suffering because they're not smoking. Their phobia kicks in more strongly than ever. Let's remind ourselves again why smoking is a total waste of time. Don't forget that the delayed sensations caused by nicotine and fear, respectively, are not the same thing. They just feel the same. This is why a cigarette cannot give pleasure or relaxation. All it can do is temporarily and partially reduce a physical sensation that your mind has confused with fear and anxiety, a sensation that wouldn't even exist if you hadn't smoked the previous cigarette. Now, let's make sure you're absolutely straight on what happens after you put a cigarette out. About 4 days after you extinguish a cigarette, provided you don't smoke another one, the delayed feeling of tension caused by nicotine is gone, and so is any possibility of a cigarette reducing it, period. You can't reduce something that physically doesn't exist, temporarily or otherwise. It just isn't possible. Let me show you how simple it really is. If you were driving and you were pulled over by the police, how scared would you be of failing a breathalyzer test? It depends, doesn't it? It depends on when you last had a drink. Okay, let's say you know for sure that you've not had a drink for 5 days. Now, how scared are you of failing this breathalyzer test? You're not scared because you physically cannot be over the limit. It's impossible. Does it make any difference if you appear nervous and stutter a bit while talking to the police officer? Well, it might make a a difference to how he sees you, but will it make you any more or less likely to fail a breathalyzer test? No, it will make absolutely no difference at all. So, predictably enough, you pass the breathalyzer test. A few days later, you're unlucky enough to get stopped by the same officer, but you still haven't had a drink, so nothing's changed, which means you're even less anxious than you were the previous time. It's simple, right? A few days after you stop smoking, you will no longer be experiencing the effects of tension caused by nicotine. In the same way that you can't suddenly become drunk without having a drink, you can't get the delayed effects of nicotine without nicotine entering your body. Sure, you can give yourself this sensation all over again by smoking a cigarette and then reducing it briefly with the one afterwards. But if you haven't actually got that sensation to start with, all you'll be doing is taking a ludicrously complicated route to feeling the same as you already do, which is not having the delayed reaction caused by nicotine. And it won't even work. It will only reduce it slightly while causing it all over again. Why aren't you scared when it gets dark at night? Because you know it's going to be light in the morning. How do you know it's going to be light in the morning? Because it always has been in the past. Why won't you be scared of not smoking this time? Because your subconscious mind will know for sure that the delayed effects of nicotine are caused purely by smoking. It will also know that this feeling of tension can't hurt you. How will it know it can't hurt you? Because it's never hurt you in the past. The only thing which ever hurt you was what this sensation triggered: fear. I read an internet article a few months ago which stated that the only pleasure in smoking is the reduction in the withdrawal symptoms caused by the previous cigarette, and as cigarettes cause this feeling, there is no pleasure in smoking. The logic was absolutely correct, but what this internet article didn't fully explain is precisely why a feeling of physical tension can cause such problems in the first place. It described this feeling as a physical itch, which it isn't. The article then went on to claim that craving a cigarette is a conscious decision, which is also wrong. The craving to smoke a cigarette is 100% subconscious. Why? Because smoking is a fear response, and fear, like any other emotion, is only ever dealt with at a subconscious level. This fact is the missing link to the entire puzzle. When this sinks into your head, the picture becomes crystal clear. Most people who have just stopped smoking become anxious as soon as they even think about cigarettes, and they try to simply wish it away. Some even go through the excruciating process of counting the days or even hours since they smoked their final cigarette. In other words, they haven't given up at all, any more than someone who's holding their breath has decided to permanently give up breathing. In addition, in the first couple of days, they've still got the feeling of tension caused by nicotine. By itself, this is no problem because smokers have this feeling all the time. But the problem is that the fake anxiety and the real anxiety are now mixed together. As a final insult, on top of all this is any other anxiety that exists simply as a result of everyday life. In reality, even when a smoker is desperately struggling to stop, the total amount of physical tension directly caused by nicotine is small, and it rapidly fades. But, because there's usually so much other stress associated with stopping smoking, what does the entire sensation feel like to most people in this situation? It feels like the worst withdrawal symptoms in the world. This is what smokers are really scared of when they think about quitting. Worse, they've heard horror stories from ex-smokers who are close to them, people they trust. As I said earlier, voodoo spells can kill people who believe in them. People can quite literally drop dead if the local witch doctor uses a spell on them. How? Fear. The truth is, if you've ever gone more than a few days without a cigarette and then smoked, you are doing the equivalent of trying to remove a headache by taking an indigestion tablet. Any tension you had was no longer coming from nicotine, so smoking was never going to reduce it, because smoking can't reduce genuine stress. It can only reduce the fake version of it that is caused by the previous cigarette. You misunderstood what the feeling actually was, and in the process, you gave yourself the delayed sensation of tension caused by nicotine all over again, without making even the slightest impression in any genuine feelings of stress. It may all sound complicated, but it isn't really. Throughout this book, I've been circling you like a watchful bird, continually bringing your attention back to the central reason you smoke, the nicotine trick. This is the problem with trying to stop smoking without knowing the facts. If you quit and then start worrying about cravings and smoking, you obviously suffer stress, and this feels like withdrawal symptoms, which makes you want to smoke. You actually summon the demon simply by thinking about it. This is why you can't stop smoking and then hope the cravings miraculously go away by themselves. It might seem to work for a few days or weeks, but the connections are still in your head, like a time bomb waiting to go off. There are days when I totally despair of the way smokers think, but then I remind myself of how warped my own thinking was before I discovered the information I've put down in this book and on the website, in the workshops, on the CDs, and so on. Every single year, tens of millions of people split up with their cigarettes, only to go crawling back to them. Why? Because it ended badly. Their subconscious minds were still clinging to an illusion. They were still frightened. Okay, we're almost there. You've almost beaten the nicotine trick. You've listened as I've carefully explained the truth behind your affair with cigarettes. Your patience is about to pay off.